poppin', B? Purpock here, and welcome back to another episode of Race the Ramen, the show where I attempt to review something unscripted in the amount of time it takes to boil an instant ramen. And today we'll be taking a look at Dune, playing now in theaters and on HBO Max. Alright, we're going to start the timer right now. Okay, so Dune, or Dune 2021, I guess. Seeing how there was a previous attempt at making a film adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune series by David Lynch in 1984, which I only recently watched a few days ago to get some sort of frame of reference to see this new Dune. I know people who are big fans of the series. My brothers are huge Dune fans, but I have never read the books. I do, however, know the work of the director, Denis Villeneuve, who's done stuff like Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, Prisoners, lots of really good movies. And seeing how this was going to be an earnest, big-budget attempt to adapt essentially one of the densest, important pieces of sci-fi ever written, there was a lot of expectations on this movie to not only be a solid adaptation of the source material, but also a great movie from this director who's established such a solid reputation for himself, and to assumedly outdo the Lynch adaptation, which has its fans, but was also kind of a flop and didn't do well critically at the time. And I can tell you right now that this movie is worth seeing. In theaters if you can. If you can support it financially, that's great. I think this kind of thing should be encouraged. If you can't, that's fine. And it's on HBO Max either way. Dune is the most well put together blockbuster movie I've seen in so long. Its visual effects are fantastic. The cinematography, as you expect from Villeneuve, is excellent. And these things mixed together with the fantastic costume design and just all of these wonderful presentation elements create such a real feeling, cohesive world. It feels enormous. The sense of scale is just big. But the conflict, as complicated as it is with so many characters, and this being essentially an almost Shakespearean-esque political sort of story taking place on a galactic scale over generations, with the whole Dune series, they keep the interactions between characters very small scale and personal. And there's a lot of relationships to keep track of, lots of heavy-duty acting. Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, all these people, Oscar Isaac, all these people do fantastic. You have great acting with a story that, you see, this is going to be the sticking point, I guess, and there's no way getting around it. This is essentially the first half of a larger story. This only really adapts the first half of the first Dune book, so kind of like a Lord of the Rings situation, Fellowship of the Rings. It is unclear. It just kind of ends at a certain point, and it might not be a complete story. But what you have there, whether or not it's a fully complete story by traditional sense, is so well made and well presented and big that's worth it. Hopefully that gave you a decent impression of what I think of the movie. 3 minutes is not much, but I gotta stick to my template. The long and short of it is, as someone who doesn't really have a ton of familiarity with Dune, the source material, but knows little bits, and has, corroborated with my brother who knows a lot more, this is a really pretty faithful adaptation, not one-to-one, but it does so much right. It is incredibly intriguing, unique, well-made, and fascinating, even if it is a bit slow and a bit long. It's 2.5 hours, and it's mostly political. I can see why some people wouldn't be as interested in this. But if you really just want to see Hollywood and art house meet and watch a director with a clear vision and passion, with a real force of money and talent behind him, this is that. Dune is amazing. The only thing I'd knock up points off for is basically the fact that it's kind of slow, and it's not a perfect adaptation from what I understand, and it's not essentially a complete story. Those are all reasonable things, but everything else is so great that I can't complain. So before I go on much longer, I'm going to give Denis Villeneuve's 2021 Dune Part 1 a 9 out of 10. It's really good, not quite perfect, and it won't really feel perfect unless it gets to be that first part of a bigger story. So I'm really hoping that comes to fruition. So far, it seems to be doing well and making money, so maybe it will. But this is a special movie, and if you can experience it in a theater and like feel the sounds like rumble your bones, trust me, it's worth it. There's a lot more I could talk about, but I have to stop. I only just wish I could provide a little bit more of a solid insight onto how good of an adaptation it is. I'm led to understand that it's really close in most respects, but I'm just not the right person to ask about that. My brother might know more about it, but this is my show, so that's never gonna happen.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Starting the timer right now. Hello, and welcome to the Dune Power Hour, where I'm going to discuss... Okay, can we start out? Dune has been an inspiratory piece of work in my life. Throughout my entire adult life, I have looked at Dune as the most complete, most expertly crafted piece of sci-fi literature. Perhaps the best series of literature, constructed. I find it to be that good. I'm really glad to see a movie being created that takes this material as serious as it needs to be taken. Dune as a series is one of an immense juxtaposition over extreme timescales. For those not aware, the Dune series takes place over tens of thousands of years. The types of things that you see from one end to the other are as different as in all of human history. So, in a movie as long as this one, what they have attempted to do is to squeeze in a small amount of juxtaposition, such as between the Atreides and the Harkonnens. But they've also tempered themselves on that by removing things like the Geradog. With Baron Harkonnen sitting in a regular leather sofa, it does detract a little bit because it's a character trait. But if they had ham-fisted as much juxtaposition into this as there is in the entire series, it would have been a checkerboard. There would have been no rhyme or reason. The cut between each juxtaposed element would have to be so sharp as to make up for the amount of time taken that it would be incomprehensible. You would not enjoy it. So what they've done here is probably the best of both worlds. They've given us a lot of what we want, that is to say, we people who enjoy Dune. And hopefully you'll be someone who enjoys Dune too, because this movie is pretty dang decent. And just a little bit more about the Harkonnen cruelty. To the extent that they show that he's gluttonous, he's cruel, he tortures people, he has a genetically altered pet that looks like some kind of humanoid. I actually don't remember that from the book. But in the David Lynch movie, he's significantly more lecherous, and it also, they tone down his skin condition, which is definitely in the book. And in the David Lynch movie, he has the skin condition, and it's pretty grotesque. I understand why they left that out, especially considering that although both were PG-13, it is something that I think would turn off younger audiences, and just having him be a big fat guy is enough of a shorthand. Alright, so the casting. Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, I think it's reasonable. For those of you, this is a major spoiler. Duncan Idaho is reincarnated an incredible number of times. He comes back constantly throughout the series. It's almost ridiculous. He's like a cockroach. And as a result, the fact that they've picked such a big name actor is probably a good choice, except for the fact that if they really want to adapt this series to the level that it kind of deserves, then Jason Momoa is going to be an old man by the time they're done. There are so many books, and there is so much of Duncan Idaho to be shot that unless they're just shooting right now, they're going to run out of Jason Momoa before they run out of Dune. Mr. Brolin, forget his first name, I think he was an interesting choice for Gurney Halleck. I'm not really sure why. I think I have a different mental picture of Gurney Halleck, but the scar was a nice touch. I'm glad that they included that as well. It was also in the David Lynch movie on Zendaya as Cheney. I'm not personally a fan of Zendaya, but she did an okay job.
Lady from Reminiscence.
Ah, yeah, the woman from Reminiscence
Rebecca
who played
Ferguson.
Jessica. Jessica was played by Rebecca Ferguson, which she was in Reminiscence, and she was awful. She was just dead awful, and in this movie she's not awful, so I didn't even recognize her until after the fact. Leto, good casting, don't know who that is. Thufir Hawat. The casting for Thufir Hawat was fantastic, impeccable. I think they could not have done a better job. I don't know who that is. His role in the story is well played. He looks the part. He's just excellent. All in all, Dune has a lot of potential as a series, and this movie has squandered none of it. Therefore, I can only give it my wholehearted recommendation and I think you should see it in theaters if you want to see more Dune content. Vote with your wallets. All in all, for Dune, I'd give it a I hold at your neck the gum jabbar. You must see this movie if you want more Dune content.
What's in the movie?
Ornithopters.
Oh, fuck yeah!
The Dune series weighs more than a child when printed on paper. This movie weighs more than a child when printed on your eyes. Can we do this in chunks?